So, back during the Moro arc, it was stated by Whis that Saiyans are known to exhibit untold power when their backs are against the wall, especially Goku and Vegeta. But now it's been confirmed that it's not just Goku and Vegeta who have this exceptional talent, it's also Broly and Gohan. Now, this cool dynamic that Dragon Ball Super has crafted between Gohan and Broly is not something that I really expected. I did notice the parallels between Broly and Gohan early on. I've talked about it before. They're both mutants who have an extremely large amount of latent potential and can summon that latent potential through rage. And they're also both naturally pure-hearted. They both have concern for pretty much all life. They both have a fascination with animals. Parallels go on and on, but the main thing I wanted to get into today was the fact that Gohan may have revealed to us the secret technique that Dragon Ball Super has been hinting at for Broly for a very long time, all the way back during his introduction in the Dragon Ball Super Broly film, to promotional material that was discussed in Shonen Jump, and also here lately in the Dragon Ball Super manga. Now, I've talked about this before at length on my channel about a new form and a new secret technique that's coming for Broly that they've been hinting at for a long time. This isn't a new topic on my channel, but the last chapter of the manga really hinted at this whole thing in a way that they never have before. So one thing I wanted to mention is the parallel between the evolutionary paths of Gohan Beast and Broly as a Super Saiyan. So if you remember back during the manga version of the Tournament of Power, Kefla and Gohan were facing off against each other. Kefla begs the question as to who Gohan is, and Gohan says that he's a Saiyan, just like Kefla, but born on Earth, which we know is not completely true because he's a hybrid. And something I find really cool about Gohan and Broly is that Gohan has been compared to a Super Saiyan since his introduction, since Vegeta first found out about his latent potential, and Broly is legitimately the legendary Super Saiyan. And that creates a pretty cool dynamic between the two characters, given the fact that Gohan is a mutant just like Broly, but in an entirely different way. But due to that, he has very, very similar abilities and latent potential compared to the actual legendary Super Saiyan, Broly himself. So as Kefla and Gohan are fighting in the Tournament of Power, she begs the question why he isn't going Super Saiyan. And what's really important to notice about this conversation is that when Kefla brings up the idea of Gohan becoming a Super Saiyan, he states that he chooses to keep evolving as a human and not as a Saiyan, which I talked about before is not the actual translation. The actual translation is centered around his own personal path rather than the biological roots of humans and Saiyans. But you have to look at the context of this conversation and why it's being framed that way, and that is because Super Saiyan itself, and this has been stated in Dragon Ball Super and in promotional material, is an evolution or a mutation of Saiyan biology. So the reason Gohan chooses to bring up the term evolve or evolving is because he's basically saying that I'm choosing not to use a Saiyan-rooted mutation, but my own, which is what eventually led to Gohan Beast, is he's taking advantage of his own personal awakenings as a mutant and not necessarily as a Saiyan, but as a hybrid who is born with special abilities as a result of being said hybrid. So that's another way that he and Broly are very, very similar in that they're both these mutants, again, who are born with all this latent potential, can tap into it through their rage, and due to this, they sort of propel themselves above Goku and Vegeta more easily because they're mutants, they're freaks of nature, so to speak. Now, one thing I want you to understand about the difference between how Super Saiyan works in comparison to a standard evolution that Saiyans go through in combat is that Super Saiyan is the result of allowing rage to take a hold of your conscious thoughts. Okay, just long enough for you to experience this strong adrenaline effect of fight or flight due to that rage and that anger. You're essentially constantly fighting off the effect that rage has on your consciousness and on your intentions while you're in the Super Saiyan state. So you're constantly fighting off anger and rage from affecting your conscious thoughts and your actions, which is something that Goku went through on Namek. Now, there's a difference between that and your standard fight or flight reflexes. And so a good example of that would be when Vegeta first went Ultra Ego. That form is not a rage-based form at all. It's simply Vegeta allowing the effect that Saiyan biology has on his body to affect his mind. Okay? All this stuff is centered around psychology. Instead of allowing the rage that comes with his fight or flight to dominate his mind like he does as a Super Saiyan, he's just allowing his fight or flight reflexes and the Saiyan's love for battle to fuel him in a different way through causing him to perceive nothing but destruction. So instead of using his fight or flight reflexes to create a rage-based transformation, he's using it to create a destruction-based transformation. So essentially, he's taking what Saiyans normally use to tap into certain aspects of their psychology, and instead of using it to tap into rage, he's using it to tap into destruction, and that is what Ultra Ego is. He's allowing the Saiyans' desire, their need, their want to destroy, affect his conscious thoughts. Okay, it's very similar to whenever Broly's in Ikari, and his rage is affecting his thoughts to the point that he has no control, but it's the opposite. Because Vegeta, again, as a character, has always embraced the effect that battle has on his mind. That's the reason he can talk through the Great Ape state. He's always embraced the effect that his fight or flight reflexes, his love of battle, his Saiyan blood has had on his biology, to the point that he's allowed it to affect his conscious thoughts and who he actually is in terms of his personality, which is why Vegeta is the embodiment of what the Saiyans are when he's first introduced, because he allows his Saiyan biology to dominate not just his body, but his mind, his conscious thoughts. Now, very opposite to Vegeta, Goku, his training in the Granola arc is completely centered around not allowing this to affect his mind, not allowing things like rage or destruction and things like that to affect his conscious thoughts. He is supposed to, despite the fact that he cannot keep his heart calm, use his heart pumping to his advantage through the effect that it has on his body, but not his mind. So he's essentially not allowing rage or destruction or any of the possible avenues that your fight or flight reflexes can take in terms of the effect that it can have on your conscious thoughts. He's not allowing that to do anything to his conscious thoughts or his mind. He's keeping calm so that way he can use Ultra Instinct despite the fact that his heart is going crazy because he's in a state of fight or flight. And that's what causes him to fight more Saiyan-like when he's in his version of Ultra Instinct, because he's embracing the effect that battle has on Saiyans, but he's not allowing it to affect his conscious thoughts. And Bardock did something very similar. They make it a point to point out that he is not allowing his rage or anything like that to affect his conscious thoughts. He is just completely ingrained into the battle. He's essentially become one with his fight or flight reflexes. So that's something else that they use to point out the Saiyans' ability to, at some points, control and take advantage of their fight or flight reflexes. Vegeta does it through his ego merging with the idea of perceiving nothing but destruction, because that suits Vegeta's personality. He himself is adept at having that personality and having that mindset, and he embraces it and makes it a part of who he is. He makes it a part of his personality, and that's the reason he's adept at controlling and using Ultra Ego, despite the fact that it's dominating his mind. He's adept at embracing the effect that his ego and his destructive thoughts has on his mind. So, due to the fact that he is destruction, he is controlling his fight or flight reflexes through his consciousness and through his personal thought processes, which is centered around destruction. And Vegeta himself is naturally adept at that. And then Goku has his own version of this, where he doesn't allow his conscious thoughts to be dominated at all, so he can use Ultra Instinct. And then Bardock allows his fight or flight reflexes to dominate his mind in a more general sense, in the fact that he just embraces them and becomes one with them as a whole, rather than taking any specific avenue like destruction or rage or any of that stuff. So that brings us to Broly. Now, Broly has a very, very similar thing going on. When his heart starts pumping like crazy, he goes into the Ikari or rage state. Okay, so essentially what this is it causes Broly to become a great ape in his base form. And rage is what actively causes Broly to go into this state. It's what causes him to become a great ape in his humanoid state. Not a tail and a moon, rage itself. So they're making a connection there between rage and the great ape state. And that's very, very important. Due to that, if Broly can control his rage, he can control the effect that Ikari had on his biology and who he was. But what was that effect? Well, he would get stronger as he fought. He would adapt to his opponent's fighting style. Basically, he just became more naturally adept at using all of the abilities that the Saiyans themselves naturally have. Adaptation, getting stronger, learning people's fighting styles, their moves, things of that nature. That is what Broly can have at his disposal if he can learn to control himself through his rage, which is what is currently happening. Now, here recently it was stated by Vegeta that Broly had immense control over his energy, to the point that Vegeta felt that he needed to train to catch up with Broly. And it was confirmed in the last chapter that Broly cannot do that outside of his subconscious state outside of his Ikari state, where he's not consciously in control of his actions. If he's in control of his actions, he didn't even have energy control on the level of Gohan. So Gohan essentially is the greatest example of the future of Broly's character in this way, because Gohan has basically done what Broly needs to do, but in his own way through the ultimate state. So Broly and Gohan are going to be representations of two evolutionary paths. They're both mutants who evolve at an accelerated rate, but Gohan is going to do so through his own personal path, which is what Gohan Beast is, and Broly is going to mutate and take full advantage of the Super Saiyan path. Okay, so it's going to be very, very similar to Gohan Beast, except instead of Gohan abandoning the Super Saiyan transformation as an evolution, it's as if someone like Gohan embraced the Super Saiyan path and pushed it to its absolute limit. So that's what's going to happen with Broly, because he is a representation of the idea of the legendary Super Saiyan, and because they're paralleling him with Gohan in this way. And that's also what makes Gohan and Broly's dynamic so cool, is they're both pushing their own evolutionary path to the absolute max, to the max potential that they possibly can. The reason that Broly is so impressed when he's watching Goku and Gohan fight is that the technique that Gohan uses, where he essentially uses his rage to fuel his moves but then controls them at the last second, that is the secret technique that they are building up to for Broly in terms of being able to control his energy better, because his energy comes from his rage. But it's not just his energy that comes from his rage. It's literally his Saiyan instincts that come from his rage. Now, again, the fight or flight state that characters like Vegeta, Bardock, and Goku took advantage of in the Granola arc is separate from Super Saiyan, in the sense that you don't have to embrace the rage that causes Super Saiyan to evolve as a Saiyan. Bardock didn't, Goku didn't, Vegeta didn't. They used their own version of basically taking advantage of their fight or flight reflexes and the fight or flight state, but using different mindsets and different avenues to take advantage of that, because that is what causes Saiyans to evolve. Their heart pumping rapidly in battle tells their body that they're in danger, which causes them to evolve to surpass whatever obstacle they're dealing with at the time. But since Broly and Gohan are both rage-based characters, rage is what causes Gohan's awakenings. He took advantage of his potential unleashed path, his ultimate state path, to eventually work his way up to Gohan Beast in that way through rage. Rage is what awakens his latent potential. Broly's going to be the same thing. So you can sort of think of Broly's Super Saiyan form that he just found as the equivalent of Gohan's ultimate state. It's the form that he's going to master at this point, and then next time he experiences an awakening, he's going to mutate again in his own way, going down the Super Saiyan path. So that's essentially what they're building up to. Broly's going to have his own quote-unquote beast transformation, where since they have made this correlation between rage and the grade 8 power and Saiyan instincts and fight or flight and all this good stuff, that all of that stuff culminates into what is coming for Broly. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.